Hey everyone, today on American Land Seller, we are joined by Elizabeth Exstrom from the University of Nebraska Extension Service. Elizabeth is a horticulture extension educator who works in the University Extension office in Hall County. She provides horticulture-related programs for youth and adults, acts as the Central Nebraska Master Gardener Coordinator, and answers horticulture-related client questions for the extension. Oh, and did we mention that she's also a Nebraska Arborist Association certified arborist, as well as a member of the International Society of Arboriculture and a member of the Nebraska Nursery and Landscape Association. She is a regular panelist on the Nebraska Educational Media's Backyard Farmer program and received her bachelor's degree in horticulture with a landscape design emphasis, as well as a master's degree in public horticulture from UNL Lincoln. We are excited to have Elizabeth on our program today and look forward to all the exciting stuff that she has to share. Hello, everyone. My name is Kobe Rickardson, and welcome to the American Land Seller Podcast. We are so excited you decided to join us today on our journey to discover new and interesting things about everything land, from sales, investments, ownership, regulations, and so much more. Our mission is to connect you to the top folks in the country where it has to do with land, so we can learn more about everything from agriculture to land development.
Okay, Kobe and our special guests, let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of American Land Seller, where we are excited to have Elizabeth Exstrom from the Nebraska Extension Service. Welcome, Elizabeth. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well.
That's great. We're glad that you're on here today. I actually have gotten to know Elizabeth the last couple of years. We have been neighbors at the Kearney Gateway Farm Expo. And so that's how we've kind of gotten to know each other a little bit. And I just thought it was absolutely fascinating talking to you guys from the Extension office about what you guys do and kind of there's a lot more to it than 4-H, I guess, which is I always kind of thought you were just professional 4-Hers, but that was not the case. So if you don't mind, just give us a little bit of your background, where you come from, and then how you kind of got into the Extension office.
Sure. So for starters, I was a 4-Her growing up. I was involved in FFA, small town Nebraska. Went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and I majored in horticulture. Got my degree in landscape design and graduated with that. And I got a summer internship with Nebraska Extension. And I also was under the impression that Nebraska Extension was just all 4-H. Like, that's all I knew. And so through that internship, I learned more about what Nebraska Extension does and its reach and its mission and things like that. And so in order to be a Nebraska Extension educator, you have to have your master's. So I went back and I got my master's, and I started with Nebraska Extension in 2008. I applied for a job thinking they'll get my foot in the door, or at least know that I'm interested. I won't get the job. I don't have experience, new graduate.
Sure.
No. And then I got the job offered to me.
Nice.
So I started with Nebraska Extension down in Gage County. And then after about a year and a half, I transferred up to the Hall County office, and I've been there for about 13 years now. So I kind of jumped around a little bit.
That's cool. So you live in Hall County then?
I live in Buffalo County in Kearney. So within Nebraska Extension, we have what we call accountability regions. And those are regions where educators are accountable to the residents in that area. So in the area of horticulture, like I am, we only have about 10 people across the state. And so these accountability regions at least lets those counties know, hey, if you have a question related to horticulture, trees, plants, whatever, send it to that person. So my accountability region is through the center part of the state, all the way from Kansas to South Dakota. So I get a pretty diverse county population there, because I go from Brown Rock and Kippahaw County down to Webster, and then I also have the Tri-Cities in my region.
Wow, that's a pretty good area.
That's just a small swath. It's fine.
Yeah, I know how it is to have a pretty good area. I cover Nebraska and South Dakota, so
Yeah, that's you get it. You get it.
I do. I'm in the car an awful lot. So,
Hmm.
so your specialty is in horticulture. I know, like in the intro, we kind of went over that, but you are also part of the Master Gardener program. Is that correct? So, what is the Master Gardener program, and how, if I was wanting to get involved in that, how would I do that?
So I'm a coordinator for my region for the Master Gardener program. The Master Gardener program is a horticulture-based volunteer program. So in their initial years, Master Gardeners are required to get 40 hours of education. And then what they do is they turn around and they volunteer 40 hours to their local communities.
Huh.
And so then after that initial year, it's 10 hours of education and 20 hours of volunteer service. So once you're in, it kind of evens out. But we have master gardeners all across the state. We have somewhere around 700 or so. You know, we go from Omaha all the way out to Scotts Bluff. And we have master gardeners in the biggest towns of Omaha or the smallest towns of, I think I have one up in Holt Hoyt County up there. But we have master gardeners everywhere. So it's a Nebraska Extension program. So if you reach out to Nebraska Extension in your county, they should be able to get you the contact information with those county coordinators, and that's how you can get started in that.
Sure. When you talk about volunteering, what does that look like? Like, is there like a community garden, or is it that they have to, you call them up and be like, hey, go check this tree out, and like you have these people you deploy for?
So it really depends on where you're at in the state. Some of the master gardeners in Omaha, they come into the extension office and they answer the questions and deal with the walk-in clientele related to that horticulture
Okay.
topic. Some counties, the master gardeners help with the county fair and the 4-H or open class horticulture and floriculture exhibits. Some of them do have community gardens that they donate their hours to. So it really depends on where they're at, what opportunities are available to them, because every location is just a little bit different.
Sure. Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't know. Like I said, hanging out with you guys at the expo and just talking to you, I have learned a ton about what the extension has to offer out there. So in your area that you kind of cover, you're not the only one. That your specialty is kind of like the trees, the horticulture, that kind of stuff. And then the Master Gardener program. But what other, like just bird's eye view globally of the extension, what does that look like? Like, what all does the extension cover, and what does it help out with for folks?
So Nebraska Extension, what we are is we are an extension of the university out in the county. And what we offer is that impartial, science-based education about a wide variety of topics. So we're most known for our 4-H program, which is a
Sure.
youth development program, but we also have early childhood programs, food nutrition and health, livestock, water and cropping systems, entrepreneurship, and then we also have, the horticulture, landscape, and environmental systems area. I'm kind of partial to that one. And then we
I bet you are.
we have one called Rural Prosperity Nebraska, where they work with different towns. Are we bringing young people back to those towns? Are we getting new businesses? Different things related to that rural Nebraska. So, we cover a wide variety of topics. And so we're in 83 of the 93 counties. We touch all of the counties, but we don't have a county office in every single county in Nebraska.
Right. So so some of your guys, so you actually have just somebody that's kind of in charge of the 4-H programs in areas, right? Mm-hmm. So like Dawson County, I think they have I can't remember her name, but there's people that are in the counties that just have different specialties, correct?
Yep. So we went to focused educators a few years ago. So the old model was you walked in and that person that you talked to at the front counter knew all the answers to all the different topic areas. And so when I started, we kind of went more focused educators. So I mainly answer horticulture questions. Now, that being said, we don't have anybody to answer wildlife questions, so that gets to come to me.
Yeah.
We have, some of those other questions where it's kind of my area, so I'll answer it. Like I'll answer bug questions, or, I can answer a random pasture question, but, you know, the, some offices are like that. Some offices, you talk to the beef person or you talk to the crops person, and that's their focus area.
Oh, very cool. Well, I think this is a good time to take a break, and we'll be back. We got a couple more segments here with Elizabeth. We'll make sure that she's got enough water and stuff to make it through the long haul here. And but man, we really appreciate you coming and talking to us. And we will be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch. Remax Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great Remax agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com. Hey, and we're back here with Elizabeth Exstrom from the University of Nebraska Extension office in Hall County. She covers Hall County, Buffalo County, and quite a few other areas. But she is not only is she an extension office extraordinaire person, but she's also a certified arborist. And I find that fascinating because Elizabeth, and we were kind of talking about it during the break. I have a lot of clients, that are buying recreational property, and so some river ground and some stuff that they're getting into for hunting, and so they want to make sure that their habitat that they're buying is good for like certain different animals like duck or geese or maybe even deer. So can you just talk a little bit about when you're I know you leave the office and go look at people's stuff every once in a while. We talked a little bit about that at the expo, but talk a little bit to us about like what kind of stuff an arborist does and what kind of habitat issues we might have with recreational property type of stuff.
So when it comes to being an arborist, what I do is I look at trees. I can determine health. I can determine if there's going to be an issue. I can let you know if that tree is going to go downhill, if it's not going to go downhill, just different things related to trees and tree health. And so, knowing what trees you have or what's normal for that species of tree or what's its expected lifespan, that's all good information to know. Like if you're purchasing a property that's surrounded by Austrian or Scotch pine trees, and we have pine wilt in our area, that's going to be detrimental to that windbreak or that tree line. Right. And you're going to have to pay to replace that, or you're going to have to remove it. And so those all are things that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at like properties or at trees. It's just, okay, is there going to be an issue down the road with that species? If so, what could it be? And, first and foremost, if you're buying or selling, you need to know if you have invasive species on your property, because that has to be disclosed. And so if you're not sure what the invasive species are, you need to either educate yourself or find somebody who's educated in that area so they can come in and be like, hey, by the way, you have Phragmites if you're looking at river ground and you need to take care of it. Or, European buckthorn is on the watch list. You've got a whole lot of European buckthorn on here. It's going to be aggressive. You're going to have to try to control that before it becomes an issue. So a lot of that has to take care of what do you have and are there any issues associated with it?
Sure. And you do actually go out and visit some areas. If people kind of ask you and say, hey, Elizabeth, I'm maybe buying some property out here. Is there a chance I can get you to come take, or even better, maybe I bring in a couple of examples of something and you can say, oh, well, that's Phragmites, and that's going to be a huge problem if you don't get it taken care of.
So a lot of what I do is I do identification. So I have people either bring in samples or they text me or email me pictures of plant material that they're not real sure on. And then I can usually get them an identification as to whether or not it's something we need to worry about. I had one client send me this picture of this plant. He's like, I'm not real sure, but it seems to be very aggressive. I was like, oh yeah, that's European buckthorn. It is aggressive. It's on the watch list. You need to take care of that. These are the products you can use to take care of that now as a landowner. So I can take a look and identify. It's just kind of hard, with that large region like we talked about,
Right.
for me to be like, I'm going to drive 2.5 hours and look at this tree and then drive 2.5 hours back. But I mean, with email and texting and all that, it makes it so much easier to get that information and get those identifications of those different plants from that wide range.
Right. And you brought this up. I mean, you made this point, but across the state of Nebraska, it's almost county by county sometimes on what weeds or invasive species or things like that are a problem. Like what's a problem in Rock County may not be a problem in, Scottsbluff County. Talk to us a little bit about that. That's kind of fascinated me just doing this land sale stuff on, in my area where I live, musk thistle is a huge problem. Whereas if you go up into the northeast part of the state, they don't care about that, but they have a couple other weeds that are a huge thing that we don't even deal with where we're at. That's just crazy to me. But yeah, I think that's one of the things I think people would find interesting.
So the Invasive Species Council for Nebraska, they have a really great webpage that gives you an idea on what counties or regions of the state the different plants are issues. So southeast Nebraska has teasel. We don't have teasel in central and western Nebraska, so we don't have to worry about it. But it's always nice to know on those areas, what's an invasive species that we have in that area? Is it leafy spurge? Is it musk thistle? Is it lespedeza? If you have those in that area, you want to be on the lookout for them. But if you don't have teasel, well, don't be looking for teasel. But the thing to keep in mind is, those invasive species, you have to know what they are to know how to control them. And so, checking out that Invasive Species Council webpage to see what ones are an issue in your area, which ones are on the watch list. There's several plants that are on the watch list, including Callery pear, which is also known as that ornamental Bradford pear that everybody's putting in their landscape. It's good to know. So if you're putting in a new tree, don't be putting in a Callery pear because it's on the invasive species watch list. Or if you have Dalmatian toadflax, that's the next one that's on our list. So, knowing what you have and what's going to be an issue down the road is always key with that.
Yeah, I always laugh. I had a client that bought some pasture land up by the Calamus. Years ago, he bought it and for a reasonable price. And his whole thing was, I'm going to develop this someday or move up here and retire. And so I went out, he was looking at dividing it into 5-acre lots or 3-acre lots or whatever. And when I went up there, it's just loaded with red cedar. So as a pasture seller, I'm like, oh, this is horrible. And he was pretty proud of himself that he got all that cedar up there.
Well, the hard part with cedar is native, so it's never going to be on the invasive species list or it's never going to be on the watch list. That's the only thing that is saving it from being on those lists. If you're a pasture person, you don't be wanting cedar out there unless it's a windbreak or a tree line or, something along those lines, because that can hinder your grass's ability to photosynthesize, and it's just not as good of a quality pasture if you have cedar out in there all over, and it needs to be controlled when it's of a small size.
Yeah. Now, this particular project, it turned out to be all right because there was a lot of people wanting to build houses out there and be close to the lake. But when I first looked at it, I was just like, wow, man, you got a real tree problem. And he's like, I planted these trees. Like, but no, that's pretty cool. But also, I thought was fascinating with talking to you and stuff like that is you have your degree in landscaping, which you're also using that as part of so if I came in and talked to you and said, hey, I want to do some landscaping stuff, is that something that you have a program that you can help me with or that you give advice on, or you Is that because that's something I think is real, people really wouldn't know about the extension too, is that there's folks like you out there.
So what I normally do with landscaping is you can come to me and I can give you some ideas. I will not draw you up a landscape design plan. I will not do a phasing plan for you because I don't want to compete with the industry. The
Sure.
industry has their bread and butter. They do these designs and they can sell you the plant material. I can do a design and it could be beautiful and gorgeous, but if you can't find the plants, that doesn't do you any good. And
Right.
so what we do is oftentimes people will bring in a problem spot. What could I do in this problem spot? Or I'm having issues with X, or it's just not working. Then we kind of troubleshoot. We do some ideas. We talk about things that would work there. The hard part with landscaping is it's so individualized. What I like, you might not like. So the
Right.
next person that purchases that property probably isn't going to like. And so it's what can we do to make those smart choices that we like? And then, if we're going to sell the property down the road, what's going to not hinder a sale kind of a thing.
Right. No, and like I said, that's just fascinating to me. And so that kind of includes so why is my grass not growing in certain areas and things like that? And so if I bring in, like a picture, I kind of give you an idea, you can say, hey, try this kind of seed maybe, or something like that. Is that something too that we could contact you about?
Yep. So a lot of what I do is I do diagnostics. So I will take a look at whatever somebody brings in, whether it's my tree's not looking healthy, what's going on with it. I want to replace with a tree. What would be a good tree for this location? My grass isn't growing in the shade. What do I use? So I cover a wide range of topics in there. And so it's all that diagnostic. Let's take a look and see what our issues are. What could we do to make it better?
That's really, really kind of, like I said, I am totally fascinated by what you guys are doing, top to bottom. But anyway, you know what? It's a real good time to take another break. Elizabeth, thank you so much for hanging out with us. You got one more, maybe 10-minute segment in you, or are we running out of steam here?
Oh, let's do it. We got it.
All right. Well, you guys hold on and we will be right back. Brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch. Remax Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great Remax agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com. All right, everybody, welcome back. I did misspeak earlier. Elizabeth, you are not number 3. You are actually number 4 on the podcast list. So but the first one, the audio was quite rough. So but we are excited to have you on today talking about what the extension does for our, for the areas that you guys are in. One of the things I did learn in the last few years as I got really into this real estate venture is all the education options that the extension service in Nebraska offers. What specifically, I guess, let's start with what classes. I know you teach some. What classes do you offer, and what kind of timing is it? Is it online? Is it in person? Little of both, some hybrid stuff. I just think people would be kind of fascinated to know what you're teaching.
So when it comes to Nebraska Extension does teach our pesticide applicators. So those are the people that make those applications, whether it's restricted use or general use products. So there's the private application training for the farmers or those that make the application to their own land. I let our agronomy people handle that one. It's a little much
Sure.
out of my wheelhouse. But I do the commercial, non-commercial pesticide trainings. Those are for anybody that makes applications either as a part of their job or for hire. So that includes Department of Roads, that includes exterminators, that includes those lawn care companies. So we're really getting into the thick of the season now with that commercial pesticide training,
Sure.
and then the private training as well. Those are some of the big ones in addition to that Master Gardener training that we offer. But we have lots of educational classes. I know Nebraska Extension offers classes on farm transition plans. They offer
Yeah.
classes on food, nutrition, and health. So, I mean, there's lots of educational opportunities, if you just look up Nebraska Extension, and there's usually going to be a listing of people in that county where you're living. And so you can reach out and kind of be like, hey, what are the educational opportunities that you offer?
Yeah, I know. I have gone through the license to kill class myself. So as a landowner applicator, and I think that's is it every 3 years? Is that what it is still?
Every 3 years.
Sure. That's very cool. And again, like I was telling you during the break, that transitional land, class is pretty phenomenal. There's a landowner. So if you're absentee landowner, there's classes that are available, for folks like that. There's just tons of stuff. And you said that's, extension.unl.edu. Is that where we can find that?
Yep, that's our main extension webpage, and you can go on there and you can click on your individual county, or you can do a search of a specific topic area, and it'll come up with those educators that are teaching that topic. So there's several ways that you can use that website. You can go to the different like expertise areas, and it'll outline what each one of those areas is doing too. But there's lots of educational opportunities, and thankfully, due to COVID, I hate to say it, but a lot of the trainings are either hybrid or there's some Zoom opportunities. Before we were mainly face-to-face and that was your only option. But now we're kind of embracing either hybrid or, some recorded classes as well. So, I mean, there's lots of opportunities out there, regardless your learning style.
Yeah. And so do you guys have like your own YouTube page where somebody can go, like kind of check out and learn more about, just different topics that you guys are educating on?
We do, but the hard part is because we're so diverse, it's hard to like pick what videos go on there. We also have Extension TV, but that's just those segments that are already, broadcast, put together, YouTube, whatever, and they're all in that one spot. I don't know if they update that regularly as much as YouTube, but your best bet's to start with extension.unl.edu and start there and check that out. But we've got lots of things. I know, like in the area of horticulture, we have Backyard Farmer, which is the longest running non-syndicated television program in the nation.
Wow.
71 years as a part of Nebraska Extension. And so that's on YouTube, that's on whatever social media page platform you use, but that's another one where we do have a lot of videos posted about that horticulture topic area.
Yeah, and you're one of the people that are on there quite a bit, aren't you? Or
yes, I am on the panel. So, it's kind of a cool opportunity to take part in something that's been going on in the university and Nebraska Extension for a long time.
So how often do those episodes come out?
So they are weekly. They are actually live at NET Studio in Lincoln, and they start in April, and they usually go till about the second or maybe third week of September. But it's every week, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Set your clock. If you miss it, you can watch them on YouTube because they do put them up there the next day or within a short amount of time. And they're also on Nebraska Educational Media. It's not only on their Thursday nights, they replay it Saturdays, they replay it Sundays, they play it again another time. So, I mean, if you miss it, it's your fault because there's lots of different ways to see it.
You're a loser if you didn't catch it. No, but so give us, I forgot all about that. Give us an example of like your last episode or two, like what were the topics on there for the Backyard Farmer?
So Backyard Farmer has their different subject matters or their different chairs. They've got the entomology chair, they have the turf chair, they have the plant pathology chair, and then there's the general horticulture chair. And throughout the growing season, it really changes what the questions are. Early on, not very many people have many plant pathology questions or many, insect questions because they're not out yet.
Right.
But as the year progresses and, more insects are out or more diseases are coming out, then we really see that shift in some of those questions. And so, I'm guessing early on when we get on in April, we're looking at what pre-emergent timing when it comes to crabgrass preventers and home lawns. We're going to
Sure.
talk about home gardens. We're going to talk about, certain things. So it's kind of like we see the same questions every year about the same time. So you can kind of get a general idea. But then you've always got those off the wall ones that you were never going to guess that was coming.
Sure. No, that's pretty cool. We were talking about, like one of the things just personally that I've been kind of fighting with, and I had some acres that I had at one time where I lived, and now I've kind of moved to my office in Gothenburg. We have an apartment above that where we've kind of redone the second floor, and we live up there. So I don't have a whole lot of lawn space, but Texas sandbergs, goat heads, whatever you want to call those things, like what's the best way to get rid of them? I have a few in the alley every year, and it seems like they're resistant to my trying to kill them. So how's the best way? Just pull them? Is that the best way, or?
So if we're talking puncture vines, the ones that grow really low to the ground, also known as goat head or whatever you want to call them, those are an annual. So that's the good news. You can use a pre-emergent like you would apply for like crabgrass preventers and things like that. The thing to keep in mind is it's going to germinate later. So you could put an application down beginning of May, but you're really going to need that second application 6 to 8 weeks later to extend that period of time that pre-emergent is in the soil profile. The downside, those seeds are viable for like 10 years.
Oh.
So it's not going to be a one and done. You're looking at consistently either applying that pre-emergent or applying a post-emergent like, glyphosate like Roundup or 2,4-D. As soon as you see it, you don't wait till the end of the season to spray it, because by then the seeds are already mature, they're viable. You just killed the plant like 2 weeks before frost, and that was about it. So, early scouting, early application is going to help them from getting too big. But yeah, those seeds are viable for a long time. So good luck.
Yeah, that's not cool. It's like we have just a little bit of green space in the alley where between some buildings and stuff, and so that's kind of one of the things. Somebody brought some country dirt in a while back to fill some holes in, and we've been fighting them ever since then. So we're getting kind of close to the end here, Elizabeth. And again, we're so thankful that you came on today. I've learned a lot. I always do when I'm visiting with you and your team. But what we're looking ahead for 2023, anything you guys in your research or anything like that kind of you're concerned about this year in the state or in the area, I guess, that maybe we should be on the lookout for any plant diseases or tree diseases or anything like that?
So one of the things that's going to be an issue is probably going to be drought. I mean, we were dry for a good solid year. And last year we saw a lot of turf grass that died last spring. The hard part is a lot of our trees, they'll be able to handle it for a while. But if it gets to be too long, or, if you ever tried to siphon something and you lose pressure, it's hard to get that siphon to start back up again.
Yeah.
So think of a tree as a giant siphon. If that water column within the tree breaks because there's not enough moisture available, it's very hard for that tree to restart that siphoning process to get water up to the top. And so sometimes we'll see trees, they'll look fine, but like 2-3 years after a drought, they start to go downhill. And so that's my concern for the upcoming year, is we could see some of the effects of the drought on some of our trees. And then also, because we were so dry, we're probably going to have an issue with grasshoppers.
Oh, really?
They tend to be worse in years following drought, just because a lot of times the moisture will have an effect on the eggs and if they hatch and this, that, and the other thing. But we're probably going to notice some increases in some of our grasshoppers in areas of the state, especially those that were kind of dry. So those are two predictions I'm going to be fairly confident in making at this stage of the game.
Sure. So, like, and one of the things over the last few years that I've seen that kind of uptick on has been the like the lightning bugs have been kind of out like crazy. Does that have something to do with like, it seemed to me like the 5-6 years before the last 5 years, we didn't see very many of them. And then all of a sudden they're just all over the place. Is that something that kind of is drought related or weather related, or I'm just not paying attention?
It's one of those where, the male and female have to flash those lights in order to get a mate. And so if they're in an area where there's too much light, then the males and females can't see each other. And so that has a lot to do with if you're seeing the lightning bugs out and about. They are an insect, and so they are susceptible to a lot of insecticides that get put down. So one of the things to keep in mind is we need to know and we need to focus those applications on that pest that we're trying to control. If we just make applications for the sake of making applications, we can detrimentally affect some of the beneficials or the good guys that we want to try to keep.
Right. All right. Well, Elizabeth Exstrom from the University of Nebraska Extension, is it service, office, both? Like
Nebraska Extension.
That's it.
That's it. We'll just stick with that.
Stop trying to add stuff to it, Kobe. Great. But so Elizabeth, thank you so much for being on today. I know, like I said before, I learned a lot. I know people are going to appreciate your knowledge. How can folks get a hold of you if they want, or if how's the best way to reach out to you?
So if you want to reach out to your local extension, again, it's extension.unl.edu. I'm located in the Hall County office most days. And so, you can either look up hall.unl.edu and get our contact information that way, or, there's always the good old phone at Hall or 308-385-5088. I'll get it that way, or, your best bet's to start on the website. You can shoot me an email from there. It's got our contact information. So that just gives you the best place to reach out to.
Awesome. Well, and again, that website she keeps saying is extension.unl.edu. And there are a ton of great resources, a ton of great people that you can reach out to in different specific categories and that know a lot about just all kinds of stuff when it comes to things going on in our state. So, and again, one of the things that they do is, which is, now it's my part of that I thought that they just focused on was 4-H. So if your kids want to be a part of 4-H and don't know how to get a hold of the local clubs, that's an extremely important part of growing up, I think, in Nebraska, is being a part of that 4-H. So again, Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time. And I hope that I can't wait to see you guys again this winter, or what is it? Usually November, I think, end of November when we go to hang out in Kearney. So looking forward to seeing you guys then.
Sounds like a plan. We'll see you then.
All right. Well, thanks again for tuning in to American Landseller Podcast. I am Kobe Rickardson, and we will see you all down the road. You have been listening to the American Landseller Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this week for our program, and we promise to continue to try and find new, exciting, and informative things to discuss every single time. If you would be so kind, please like, subscribe, or follow whatever works on the app you're listening or watching on. We would love for you to keep track of what we're up to. Thanks again, and until next time, God bless you. Have a great week. Today's episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch. Remax Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great Remax agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com.